Social movement from Latin America and the Caribbean took to the streets of Los Angeles to ratify their condemnation of exclusionary policies at the Summit of the Americas. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro arrived in Iran as part of his Eurasian tour. Thousands of Muslim protesters in several Indian cities against recent insults against the Prophet Muhammad. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrera from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. In the United States, social movement from Latin America and the Caribbean took to the streets of Los Angeles to ratify their condemnation of exclusionary policies at the Summit of the Americas. At the gates of Los Angeles Convention Center, the organizations reiterated their rejection of the internal and external policies of sanction, as well as exclusion and blockades promoted by Washington's administration. At the same time, the demonstrators reaffirmed their commitments to the struggle of the peoples of our Americas, while calling for integration to address the most urgent problems of the entire region. The last plenary session of the Summit of the Americas took place at the Los Angeles Convention Center with the participation of representatives from Peru, Mexico, Honduras, Uruguay, among others. The summit was marked by criticism from several delegations regarding Washington's imposition to exclude several countries from the event. Most of the participating countries agreed to raise calls for unity, cooperation, and integration for the common good of the people of the Americas. During his participation in the Summit of the Americas, the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Brownie, stressed the next summit, no country in the region should be excluded.
I must go on record as regretting that the invitation to this 9th summit were not extended to all heads of state. I recognize that there are crucial problems in our communities that require our collective attention. I hope that there will be no future summits to which no head of state of the Americas will be excluded.
Premier Brownie also denounced the unilateral coercive measures applied against Cuba and Venezuela as a barrier to peace and prosperity in the region.
As for the embargo on Cuba, I must say that it is a barrier to peace and prosperity in this hemisphere. It must end, in the same way we ask that there be contact and participation with the government of Venezuela, so that the resources of that country are used for its needs, with a constructive and peaceful government. This must be done by all parties to bridge the gaps and to promote the social, political well-being of all the peoples of this hemisphere.
Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel gave a virtual greeting to the People's Summit held in Los Angeles, U.S. The head of state thanked the organizers of this event for raising the voice of the peoples excluded from the Summit of the Americas.
No me equivoqué cuando dije que yo no estaría en la cumbre de las Américas, pero que sí estaría la voz de Cuba. Ustedes son nuestra voz.
The revolution has always had it very clear. Where governments deprive us from our voice, peoples will be there to represent us, to speak on our behalf. This has been the case when the minister of the colonies, when there were governments that were pushed by the emperor to break relations and ended up by obeying the order of the master, with the honorable exception of Mexico. The Cuban Institute of Friendship with the Peoples was born from that understanding. Solidarity is not only a principle inseparable for the revolutionary praxis, it is the most formidable weapon for those of us who believe in the power of the masses, in the telluric force of mobilized peoples, and in the inspiring struggle for social justice.
The Cuban president alluded to the resistance of the Cuban people and the durability of a revolution that has resisted more than 60 years of sabotage, evasions, and blockade, and has not needed the OAS to obtain significant achievements.
Cuba was the first Latin American nation excluded from hemispheric alliances for having rebelled against the empire. Others tried to the same before, subjected to coups d'etat, dictatorship, and transnational campaigns of terror like Operation Condor. Cuba was expelled from the OAS. It was separated from its natural place. They financed invasions, and they continue to finance different attacks against the revolution. We are the honorable survivors of 63 years of blockade. And to the disgrace of that powerful empire, which is 35 bigger than Ireland, we are among the countries with the limited that have the highest levels of education, health, as well as our own scientific development.
Former President of Bolivia, Evo Morales, criticized the exclusion policy applied and double standards by the United States at the Summit of the Americas.
I am very sorry that the only thing that the United States does is to exclude people, marginalize, intervene with their policies. The United States proclaims democracy, but by excluding Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua, well, they are lying to everyone. That is not democracy. It also defends freedom. How is it possible that the people who freed themselves from the empire are excluded from the Summit of the Americas?
The former Bolivian president called for the unity of Latin American people to fight against interference policies of the U.S. government.
The United States is no longer an empire. And surely, with its resentment against life, against humanity, they still try to impose policies through intervention, policies of economic extraction of natural resources almost everywhere in the world. Therefore, sisters and brothers, for deep reflection, may we continue in this hard fight with unity for our freedom, unity for our freedom, and above all, how to respect the cultural diversity and the richness of our identity, of our dignity, also of our freedom.
teleSUR expands the signal with a new satellite parameter since more than ever. The world connects to us and our stories are being heard all around the world. These parameters are in place since June the 1st in Latin America and the Caribbean, both in Spanish and in English, and quite soon further changes will be implemented from the signal in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. This new multi-platform will continue providing trustful content to oppose the hegemonic media narrative and our fulfillment to our audience. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro arrived in Iran as part of his Eurasian tour. After his visits to Turkey and Algeria, President Maduro arrived on Friday at Tehran, Iran's capital. The Venezuelan president has received by top officials of the Persian nation, and it is expected, as part of his agenda, that Maduro meet with the Supreme Leader of Iran and Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi, and also to visit the historical complex of Saadabad. After his arrival at Tehran, President Nicolas Maduro offered an interview to Iran's news media channel, Hispan TV. Maduro addressed several topics, that's to say, international conflicts and geopolitical moves. The mandatory referred to U.S. sanctions against Venezuela and Iran in an attempt to suffocate both peoples by means of the threat of their livelihoods, economy, and well-being. Maduro also said Venezuela has a precious energy resource which has the oil and gasoline that the world needs. Maduro also referred to the Ninth Summit of the Americas, an event hosted by the U.S., and they excluded Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba, but stressed Argentina's President Alberto Fernandez was their advocate in the summit. He also addressed the Palestinian issue and the struggle that nation had to sustain and face Israel's aggression. He also also said cooperation between Venezuela and Iran is a key to overturn global hegemonic powers. During his visit to the Islamic Republic of Iran as part of his Eurasian tour, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro gave an interview to the Iranian Spanish news channel Hispan TV, where he discussed several regional and international issues, one of them the next summit of the Americas held in the U.S.
But I really believe that this has been a meeting with several dimensions. One dimension is the protest of a group of President and Prime Minister of the Caribbean, of a group of governments, against the exclusion imposed by the United States government against Nicaragua, Cuba, and Venezuela. That has been a powerful dimension. That marked the meeting in Los Angeles. That turned the meeting in Los Angeles into a sole issue, exclusion versus non-exclusion.
And in that same interview with Hispan TV, while visiting Iran, Maduro spoke about the key for the economic recovery experienced lately in Venezuela despite U.S. sanctions.
The blockade and the persecution to our oil sales meant that we went from having 1 year $54 billion of revenue to only $1 billion the following year. A revenue catastrophe. It was meant to shake the social fabric of the nation so that it would lead to violence that would justify an imperialist military intervention. And now we are on the first stage of a true economic recovery, which makes us very optimistic about the future of our country.
A new poll in Colombia shows a technical between the two presidential candidates, Gustavo Petro and Rodolfo Hernandez, who will face off in the June 19 runoff elections. The Ivanir poll shows a 48.2% intentions to vote for Fernandez, candidate of League of Anti-Corruption Governors, while Gustavo Petro, presidential aspirant for the historical path, has the support of 47.2% of those consulted. However, the opinion poll has a margin of error of 2.69%, which suggests a technical tie in the results. However, another survey conducted by the national media called Electoral Tracking revealed that Hernandez lost a slight advantage he had over Petro and currently has a 46.8% voting intention against the 48.1% of the leftist candidate. China and India have announced increased oil purchases from Russia, a decision that undermines the effectiveness of Western sanctions against Moscow. China imports by sea 1.09 billion barrels a day from Russia, while India imports 740,000 barrels. Commodities analysts forecast that India, China, and Turkey will continue to buy Russian crude oil due to a big price discounts. International media report that the European Union will try to decide alternative buyers of Russian oil. In that sense, they have forbidden European insurgents company from providing coverage from ships transporting Russian oil. We have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Thousands of Muslims protested in several Indian cities against recent insults against the Prophet Muhammad, Venezuelan Pres spokesman. Largest protests were recorded in Srinagar, the main city of the Muslim region of Kashmir, when thousands of people began demonstrating in front of mosques minutes after Friday prayers. Security forces were deployed to quell the demonstrations that began in several districts of the region. The governments of Qatar, Kuwait, and other states filed formal protests through diplomatic channels after this event. The BRICS group held Friday its 12th meeting of Ministers of Economy and Trade. The bloc comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa agreed to strengthen cooperation in the development of multilateral trading system as well as in the digital economy, investment, sustainable development, and supply chain stability. It also agreed to support the proposed reforms to the World Trade Organization. The meeting is preparatory to the 14th Summit of Heads of State and Governments to be held this year. The Syrian army has neutralized an aggression by Israel against its territory. Syria's anti-aircraft defense intercepted several missiles launched by Israel. Syrian military officers said the attack, which was executed at 4:20 a.m. local time, was directed at the southern part of the city of Damascus. They say despite having shut down most of the missiles, the attack from Tel Aviv left one person dead and significant material damage. In this regard, the Syrian Minister of Transportation announced this Friday the suspension of all flights to and from the international airport of Damascus, saying several technical equipment and their terminal have gone out of service. The Ministry of Health in Nigeria reported that 65 children died in another state of Jigawa as a result of outbreak of spropial meningitis. The state epidemiologist of the health agency, Samuel Mahmoud, stated that these deaths occurred in a group of 257 registered patients. He noted that the first case of meningitis were detected near the border with Nigeria. According to the official, with support from the international organization Save the Children, 17 health centers of Higawa have benefited from the training of health personnel and medicines to contain the spread of the disease. During the last decade, significant outbreaks occur mainly in the so-called meningitis belt, which covers 26 countries in sub-Saharan Africa, according to the World Health Organization this date. Ethiopia expressed interest in resuming talks with Egypt and Sudan on the Blue Nile Dam, which is expected to be Africa's largest hydroelectric power plant. The multi-billion-dollar project is expected to bring electricity to millions of off-grid Ethiopians, but Sudan and Egypt feared it will reduce the amount of water they receive from the Nile River. Several past rounds of negotiations among Ethiopia, Egypt, and Sudan have failed. Egypt fears a quick filling of the dam will reduce its share of Nile water and seeks a binding legal agreement in case of a dispute. In February this year, Ethiopia said it had begun producing power from one unit of the dam. Early on Friday, the foreign minister spokesman Dina Mufti told reporters the third filling of the dam is on schedule this year. Shifting topics, drought affects 77% of the 1,694 municipalities in Mexico. According to the National Water Commission, the area with moderate to exceptional drought occupied 56.17%, while 21.51% of the country is in abnormally dry conditions. The agency informed that due to this situation, there will be controls on water supply and detailed that the most severe drought conditions occurred in the state of Coahuila, Baja California, and Chihuahua. Firefighters, helicopters, and planes stabilized the blaze from wildfire which broke out 2 days ago in the Sierra Bermeja, southern Spain. Some 2,000 people who fled their homes when a wildfire broke out, officials said. The fire in the forest mountainous area of Sierra Bermeja just inland from Stepona was no longer spreading freely, the Andalusian regional government said in a statement. The region's Infoca Forest Fire Authority confirmed the fire stabilized and authorized the return of residents who were evacuated. And we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. But before our farewell, so we say goodbye with the song is Nuestra America, It's Our America, performed by Mayito Rivera with Alexander Jose Gil Dominguez and Gilles Rengifo, a melody that celebrates our union as a continent. From Telesur English and from the South, I'm Ana Marrero, and thank you for watching.
Un canto por la América Unida. Mira, que lo escuchen allá arriba. ¡Vamos! Somos la tierra, somos la arcilla, la esperanza que brota y germina. 500 años nos han pisoteado, aquí seguimos, de aquí no nos vamos. Amén.